Welcome to Ghostly. Welcome to Ghostly.
Is the Russell Hotel in Sydney, Australia haunted?
Ghostly is a podcast that comes out every other week. In each episode, we take a ghost story or paranormal event and look into its complete history. Rebecca then gives us evidence proving that the story is real, and my job is to debate those pieces of evidence and get you, the listener, prepared to vote on if it's real or not. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button, and we're your host, as always. I'm Pat, and that's Rebecca.
Hello, Pat.
Hello. I'm really excited because this episode, we are going to be talking about Australia.
Yes, and I don't know if we've done an episode on Australia before. I feel like we have, but I couldn't find one.
Yeah, it feels like it, maybe it's one of those like Mandela effect things.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I think we should do an episode on that.
I think so. If you, as a listener, can remember an Australian episode, I feel like we had a listener mail from Australia, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I don't really know, but
was Sinbad on that episode?
That's possible.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about Australia and some of its rich history and the creation of the Russell Hotel that sits on a location that used to be a convict's hospital.
There you go.
The first one, actually.
See, exactly.
Yeah, the Russell Hotel is considered by some to be the most haunted hotel in Australia. Some would even say it's the most haunted location in all of Australia.
I mean, I think so.
Yeah,
And I'm excited for the evidence. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you got. So there are two ways to get a shout out on Ghostly. The first way is to give us a review on Apple Podcast. We always prefer those 5-star reviews, but as you're going to see today, we are willing to read any and all reviews that we receive. The second way is to become a member on Patreon. Just go to ghostlypodcast.com and click on Patreon in the menu bar, and we have a lot of different tiers for you to choose from. I'd suggest even, if you've never considered this, just even look at our tiers. I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah, everything from $1 to $10 and definitely some good ghostly bonus stuff in there,
definitely.
Including even extra ghostly itself.
Yeah, and some ghostly gear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, so I am going to read our review that we got. It says, mixed feelings. 3 stars from Lynn and Co.
Okay.
I like the places and the historical information as well as the activity information. But what puts me off is when Pat takes his non-believing to a ridiculous level. Instead of it could be or maybe this is, but he dismisses everything. And some is his alternative explanations are more ridiculous than anything. He is always thinking things are coincidence or made up by people and always wants evidence or to have seen it with his own eyes, which is not how these things work. Just a bit too much dismissal for me, which is why I find it interesting that he even wants to keep looking into hauntings.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I totally understand because it's difficult sometimes when you're listening to somebody that has a different point of view than your own.
Yes.
Especially when you think that there is a lot of proof that this is real or something like that. But you have to remember that I'm coming from it from a different side, and I'm coming from it from a side where I don't believe. So it changes things. So every bit of information that I get, I say, what is easier for me to believe? Is it easier for me to believe that there's these paranormal things that we can't explain, or is it easier for me to use these ridiculous explanations? And I choose the ridiculous sometimes.
Well, I think it's everybody's different, and you definitely represent a section of our listeners, a population that to them, they are very happy that you're able to offer your side of the story. And, it's okay. We don't all have to agree. It's just good that we listen.
No, and I appreciate them saying this too.
No, I mean, we always appreciate the feedback.
Well, I would like to say one more thing, though, about this is that, at the end, they did say that don't even understand why I would want to keep looking into hauntings. I was the one that came up with the idea for Ghostly.
That is true. So you definitely want to be there.
I love ghost stories. I love that kind of stuff.
Right. Even if you don't believe it, you still like to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to say, just to show the opposite, because again, this is how these things work, right? We had a comment on the most recent episode that voted no. Okay. And they said, this is based on the debate. Sorry, Rebecca, you didn't convince me. P.S. I do think it's haunted. Ms. Rebecca needed a better argument. So, we try our best to please all. But it's not always possible. And what I would say, and there are absolutely listeners that do this, go on social media and share your thoughts. Because I know I definitely do not always offer the best thoughts, and or I know there's other ways to talk about it, and same for you. And so we have both skeptic listeners and believer listeners that go on social media, especially Ghostly Society on Facebook, our private group, and they'll start offering some of their own thoughts on it, and we love to hear those thoughts.
And also I would say too that we are not the final verdict in this. That's why we have it where you can vote.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because we want to know what other people are thinking about that.
Yeah. So definitely let us know.
But I mean, I really do appreciate both of those perspectives, and I want to see more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to share some listener mail.
All right. Great.
Okay. This is also from Jason.
Oh, okay.
From Ta. And again,
like the last one.
The last one was
not the review or the.
No. This is different. And I this one I'm pretty sure we did not share. So
okay.
Here we go. So it's number 2, premonition of my father's death. I rarely, if ever, remember my dreams, and when I do, they are all a particular repeating sequence of events. Blah. In any case, I had a dream that my brother and sister and I were gathered around my father like we did as children. I remember he was sort of asking me as the oldest son to explain things to my siblings and take care of them, for he was going to die soon. I woke from that dream in the middle of the night thinking, first, that's odd. I don't often remember my dreams. And second, when I do, they're that usual boring pattern. This was not that. Unable to go back to sleep, I stayed up for a bit. I dismissed it at first as a strange, subconscious thing surfacing, a fear perhaps, for, in fact, my father was very ill in the hospital at that time. Anyhow, within a half hour, I got a call from my grandparents telling me that my father was on death's door and that I should rush to the hospital. He died that night. In fact, I had to explain things to my siblings, but also to the rest of my family, given the particular circumstances which brought about his death. My take? I don't know what to make of this either. It was what it was, and that was that. Strange? Yes. Conclusive of anything? No.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Jason, for sharing this. I always appreciate your perspective and things. And, I will be honest, when my father died, I started questioning if I had this thing called Death Watch. And it was that I could look at people and sense that they were going to die.
Interesting.
But then again, my father had pancreatic cancer, and, he was sick for 1.5 years with it. And he, dwindled down in weight and everything. So it was pretty obvious. And, then somebody else, I made a remark. I said, that person's not looking good. And then within 2-3 months, they were dead. And I thought I had this. I don't have it anymore if I did. So it was a very weird thing.
Yeah.
But man, that is that's messed up to dream of your father's death and then have him die.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we always want to hear your stories. To send us a story, you can email us at info@ghostlypodcast.com or use the contact us form right on ghostlypodcast.com. Or one of our favorite ways to get ghost stories is in the actual mail. You can send us a letter, a note, a postcard, like a holiday card, whatever you want to send us at P.O. Box number 264, and that's in Geneva, Illinois, 60134. You're not going to remember any of this. It's in the footer on ghostlypodcast.com's webpage.
Absolutely. And you can also send us a DM on social media.
You can, yeah.
Totally
Yeah,
fine.
we will take that.
Any way you can get it to us.
Yep.
All right. So it is now your favorite time.
Oh, no, it's not.
So in our last episode, we talked about the Eloise Asylum.
Yeah, we did.
Super spooky. Interesting. I'm sure this has happened before, but yes, 50%.
Oh.
No, 50%.
Oh, so I won.
No, we tied.
I'm going to say I won.
No. We actually tied.
What's really interesting about this is the overall rating, though.
Mm-hmm.
So people vote on how haunted they believe something is. And you could vote going to ghostlypodcast.com and clicking on polls.
Yep.
That's all you have to do. It's really easy. And, we don't make you jump through hoops or register or anything like that for it.
Not at all.
So the overall rating, 4.64.
I mean, that's pretty much in the middle.
Yeah,
I would
but
say.
it's like higher than I would think a 50-50 vote
That's
would be.
true. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so there were some people that, voted no that actually gave it a couple of hearts.
There you go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's listen to a ghost story.
All right.
Okay.
It's time for a spooky tale from Rebecca.
I just started working at a new hotel last week. It's a fun old place in one of the oldest neighborhoods in Sydney. Sorry, I can't do an Australian accent. I have tried. It doesn't work. So sorry. You're just going to have to listen to this in my American accent. All right. Nice people, fun, but it is an odd place. Hallways go odd ways and floors go up a step or down a step randomly. It can be hard to find your way around at first. Lots of helping visitors find their way around. The other night, I had to work closing for the first time. While I was packing up in the back, the wine glasses on the shelf just started shaking for no reason. When I went to move them, they stopped before I could even touch them. I dismissed it, though, as, maybe something from upstairs sending the vibration down, though I didn't hear or see anything. Then I was walking in an upstairs hallway a few days later. I could swear I heard a voice and some footsteps on the stairs above. But even though I was just a few minutes away, by the time I got there, everything was quiet. The last thing, though, really freaked me out. I felt like everything else, could maybe have just had an explanation. But then I was in the dining room at the end of the day trying to wrap things up. I saw a lamp break without anyone hitting it. And a little boy's voice said, "Do it again." That's when I finally asked my coworkers. They all laughed and welcomed me in. I guess these things happen all the time. They see it as a rite of passage for new employees, like the spirits are accepting you. I mean, those that experiences things, they believe they belong here. Anyways, guess I won't be leaving anytime soon.
Okay, so how much of that is real, Rebecca?
So all of the paranormal things that I mentioned are things that employees have reported.
Oh, okay.
From the wine glasses to hearing voices and footsteps and the little boy's voice. Woo.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know that it was all the same employee. I got to put it together in a story. But yeah.
Wow. All right, well, I think we should just get into this and do the history and then do the debate, but we'll do that when we return.
We are excited to announce a new way you can support Ghostly. Joining us on Patreon.
There are many reasons to become a patron. Not only are you helping Ghostly cover its own cost, but you can
Get Ghostly episodes early.
You can get up to 25% off Ghostly gear.
Get a shout out on the next episode.
You can get a priority request for a new episode.
Get more Rebecca's creepy bedtime stories.
And the biggest news, you can get exclusive content with our new show called Ghostly X for the weeks that Ghostly does not have a new episode.
As well as many more cool rewards that we can't wait to share with our patrons.
So please, help us become the podcast that we've always wanted to be. You can sign up by going to ghostlypodcast.com and clicking on the Patreon link on the menu bar.
Pat's Facts. From a skeptic point of view. Pat's Facts. He presents it all to you. Pat's Facts. Facts.
All right, welcome back. And the Pat Facts are sponsored by Tarot by Ta.
Ta is a professional tarot card reader with over 20 years of experience. He reads at numerous public events, private parties, and personal appointments throughout the greater Chicagoland area. He also does his readings worldwide using online services like Zoom.
And the best part of all, he's hashtag Team Skeptic. He's a great guy, and he's the Jason that we talked about up in the listener mail section.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Ta has had a lot of experiences too, and he remains a skeptic. So, to find out more about Ta, visit and like his Facebook page at facebook.com/tarot by Ta. All right, Rebecca, are you ready to get into the Pat Facts?
Pat Facts!
So let's start this history in 1788.
Ooh.
Because I couldn't figure out where to start.
I know. It's a long history.
Britain was in a bit of a pickle.
Okay, that's one way to say it.
Yeah. You see, they lost their colonies in America. And America had accepted transported felons.
Aha.
So they needed a new place that they could take their prisoners. So Australia was already being explored by the Europeans, by Middle Easterns, and by Asian citizens. But nobody had made an official claim for the land.
Except for the people that already lived.
Yes. Australia was a good spot for Britain because it was a strategic location for its navy as well. Britain also had one of the best navies in the world at that moment.
They did.
So win-win for them, right? They could use Australia for a penal colony, but also use it as a springboard for economic explorations of the area.
All right.
In 1788, prisoners began to be transported to Australia, but they needed some basic things that weren't there. One of these things was a hospital. So it opened that year under the care of Surgeon John White.
Very British.
Yeah. He was definitely
was he
white.
a prisoner too, I wonder?
He was not, actually.
Okay. All right.
This hospital would serve hundreds of people at this location until they could build a more solid structure that they called the Rum Hospital. And that opened in 1816.
Okay. I mean, the people in Australia like to be I should say the non-Indigenous people who have taken over Australia, to have descendants that were prisoners, it's a pretty fun background, I guess.
Yeah, but it wasn't just that. It was that they could also, it was a strategic area for them to
Sure. So I'm sure there
over.
were other people there too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So now the land that had originally held the hospital was vacant. There were some notes that the government wanted to make this location into a quarry in 1822, but I don't know for sure if they actually did.
Okay.
It's like I couldn't
A little
couldn't,
fuzzy.
Yeah, I couldn't get an exact, clear answer on that.
Okay.
In 1841, though, this land was granted to trustees of the estate of Samuel Terry. Samuel Terry was a criminal that was transported to Australia in around 1800 for the crime of stealing 400 pairs of stockings.
Wow.
Yeah, he really enjoyed his stockings.
But I mean, it seems a bit extreme to then send him to another country or land, but all right.
But when he came to Australia, he served as a stonecutter. He also worked several other jobs and eventually earned a farm in 1808.
Okay.
On March 27th, 1810, Terry married Rosita. Rosita Marsh, or Maiden. I'm not exactly sure what her last name was.
Okay.
It was kind of fuzzy on that one, too. Who was not a convict herself, but might have been married to one prior to Terry.
I mean, those were her choices.
It was, yeah, absolutely. Terry did really well for himself, though. He eventually supplied food to the government.
Nice.
By 1820, he had amassed significant amounts of property and was a shareholder in the Bank of New South Wales.
Okay.
New South Wales was a territory in Australia.
Okay. Like New York.
Yeah, exactly. There is some controversy about the means he used to acquire his wealth, though.
Interesting. The
convict?
criminal, yes.
He became accused of extortion by his enemies. It was alleged that he brought landowners to his inn who would become intoxicated and sign away their property in payment of debts.
Nice.
Yeah. But Terry became one of the richest people in the colony before passing away in 1838.
There you go.
While he was still alive, though, he started construction of 3 buildings on George Street that were surveyed by Robert Russell, who was an architect and a surveyor. In Russell's survey, it implies that this land was being used as a public hotel.
Okay.
So that's the first record that we have of the hotel.
Okay.
It was also a pub as well.
Yes, there is a pub, I think, still next door. Yeah.
Well, there was a pub, and now there's a cafe, but that's neither here nor there right now. A person by the name of Isaac Moore leased this land and made it an official public house in 1845. So by public house, it's a pub and it's an inn and stuff like that.
Okay.
Isaac must have had a good eye because in the 1850s, there was a gold rush in Sydney, and he paid just £65 a year for this property.
Wow.
The lease was signed for 5 years at that point, and then after that, it was re-signed for another 5 years at £100 a year because he made so much money on it.
Gotcha.
Isaac made enough money to hire a manager of the hotel and basically just collected money from it. He didn't even have to be there for anything.
That's the dream.
The site of Russell Hotel was held by Samuel Terry's widow and principal trustee, Rosita, until her death in 1858. In 1880, the property was purchased by Thomas Brennan. By the 1900s, the bubonic plague broke out in Sydney.
Oh, geez.
And during this time, the government issued orders in the form of cleansings and rat catching and enforced quarantines, too. Wow. We all know about quarantines nowadays, right? The structure that is now known as the Russell Hotel was built at this location in 1913, at which time they took down the old structure and built a new one. So, this work was overseen by the architect for the housing board, William H. Foggett. It was originally called the Port Jackson Hotel. The major change came in 1920s when the license for the Port Jackson Hotel was withdrawn by the License Reduction Board around 1923. This board was established under the Liquor Amendment Act, so kind of like our Prohibition Act. This was of 1919 with the role of reducing the number of pub owners in New South Wales. So what they would do is not just say you cannot serve alcohol here, they would say you can be open until 6 p.m.
Oh.
When, people would be able to stop in for one drink or something, or maybe not even get there at all. So they also got to decide which pubs would be delicensed completely. Tooth and Company, who held the commercial license for the Port Jackson Hotel, decided to just move out of this neighborhood that was being delicensed and they were having issues with. So they opened up another Port Jackson hotel someplace else.
Gotcha.
Because they really liked the name of that. The original Port Jackson Hotel now became a cafe. And in 1933, the upper floors of the building were used to provide hotel accommodations. So this is when it started to be known as the Russell Private Hotel. The origin of the name has not been determined, and it may only be coincidental that the last licensed pub owner of the Port Jackson prior to its acquisition by Tooth & Company in 1896 was W. Russell. So they're not sure why they even call it Russell Hotel.
It's weird, but all right.
The use of the upper floors as a private hotel has continued to the present day. Mm-hmm. And in 1981, the lease was transferred to the Russell Hotel Property Ltd. With Victoria Alexander as its designer and director. Alexander undertook an extensive refurbishment of the premises and reopened as Sydney's first boutique small hotel.
Whew.
Woohoo! So that's the Russell Hotel.
Yeah, it's still open.
Yeah, it's
as
still
a hotel.
Open. Yeah,
that people can stay at.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you're going to tell us that ghosts stay there too.
Yes, definitely.
So do you have anything to add to the history?
The only thing I wanted to add was just to talk a little bit about the Rocks area, because it's actually not technically in Sydney. It's more like a suburb of Sydney called the Rocks.
Yep.
And basically it was the Rocks was the first European settlement in Australia, and it was established by Captain Arthur Phillip of England in 1788. Obviously it was a penal colony, and they were, the convicts had to get the government buildings and housing up. And they were built using handmade bricks or blocks of local sandstone, which is hence the name the Rocks. And to me, I know we talk about limestone here, and I don't know. Again, I'm not Jack, or any of our more knowledgeable people, but I do wonder if sandstone might have something to do with holding on to energy. But anyways,
if so, that would just be residual and not actual ghost.
Okay, I see. Well, anyways, they, as you said, in 1900, the bubonic plague struck Sydney, which seems late to me. I don't know why. I don't know. My grandma wasn't born that long after that. I don't know.
Huh.
I mean, but anyways, but many worried then that that area would be really hit hard because it's really it was densely populated as the first place, but actually only 3 people died in that area. Okay. So but still the government, as you said, kind of bought that and reclaimed it, but a lot of it, they destroyed a lot, but a lot remained. And the area you can actually see the Sydney Harbour Bridge from the hotel.
Oh, cool.
From some of the rooms, which is a famous bridge. If you saw it, you would recognize it. And that was in the 1920s that was built.
Nice.
So it's been a developed area. And then in 1970, the government turned the Rocks over to the Sydney Cove Redevelopment Authority. And they had a plan to demolish and redevelop it. So locals formed the Rocks Residents Group in opposition, putting forth a plan to preserve and rebuild the historic Rocks. So they won. The Rocks Resident Group won in the end, and instead of redeveloping the Rocks and losing countless historic sites, the Rocks has been renovated and preserved as a premier historical area. So I just thought that was interesting. The hotel is this piece of the history. I mean, even though it's been kind of torn down and rebuilt and reused, it's still considered part of the historical area for sure.
Absolutely.
And it, has traditional furniture, and when you look at the rooms, I mean they're nice rooms, but they're not I don't know, it still has some of the old fashioned look to it. They're not super modern looking. Yeah,
I didn't actually see any of the rooms. I didn't see pictures of it.
I mean,
I did watch your video that you sent me, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
We will. And I don't know, that video is a few years old. You mentioned it was renovated. I don't know, it could be more renovated now. I'm not sure. But anyways, I just thought that was interesting that the they were going to tear it all down and, rebuild it. And the locals were like, nope. And then they actually won. That doesn't always happen. So that was interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, why don't we take a break and then we will get to the debate.
Sounds good. Pat, what do creepy stories, funny ghost memes, and inside ghostly information have in common?
My life.
Well, yes, but no, it's also Ghostly Society on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that too, of course. But aren't all ghostly listeners in Ghostly Society?
Not yet.
What? I mean, that means that they're missing out on all my jokes.
Yeah, they are. And missing out on chatting and sharing with other listeners and us, of course.
We love talking to our listeners. If you haven't yet, you should consider joining our private group on Facebook called Ghostly Society.
Let's hope now they will.
Unless they're a woman in white.
Uh-oh.
We are back, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get into this evidence.
Okay.
All right. So I did talk about a few things in this story earlier, and we'll get into some of those things, but those aren't really the most famous haunting stories. So again, lots of haunted stories here. The general idea is that they kind of come from the old hospital and just that old neighborhood, right?
Okay.
That it's the rocks. It's been built on this old area that, the plague, I mean, all the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the most famous claim, because you mentioned the Navy, right, is that a sailor was murdered by a sex worker in the hotel when it was a brothel, briefly. And this happened in what is basically considered the most haunted room in the hotel, room 8.
Okay, yeah.
People will mention room 20 and 24, though I couldn't find any specific stories for those. So we're going to stick with the sailor and room 8. Okay. So the claim is that when a single woman is staying in the room, she will awake in the middle of the night and see the apparition of a man standing at the bottom of the bed. So that's the story that people will say. Okay. So I couldn't find a story of anyone that claimed to see the apparition in that room. But I did find a few things that happened to single women staying in the room. So we're going to take the next few pieces of evidence and go over those stories. Okay. So the first is the one that I sent you, the video. Okay. So this is paranormal investigator Amy from Amy's Crypt. I love her stuff. Love her YouTube. If you haven't gone and watched her stuff, check it out. It's funny because I've seen her do investigations all over the world, like Transylvania, like all the things, but she's Australian. So she's like, I'm so excited to be home and, whatever. Anyways, so basically she did a spirit box session in room 8 because she was staying there. She kicked her boyfriend or guy friend or whoever she was with out because, again, he supposedly likes the single woman.
Yeah.
And she definitely heard some voices and heard some loud thuds. And I didn't write down all the things, but the creepiest ones, it was like a lot of "we're in here" and some hellos.
Yeah, there were lots of hellos.
Lots of hellos. So what did you think of her spirit box?
So first of all, I do appreciate her YouTube channel. I really enjoyed the way that she did the video, and even her spirit box session was fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. But I mean, it left me thinking of when we talk about spirit boxes, we're always so interested on the times when they answer correctly. but we don't take into account all the times that they don't answer correctly. Because there's just so much other stuff happening. Like even in hers, there was a bunch of blah, 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 going on in there, and nobody, you don't go, well, look at all that stuff that's wrong, there. So we only listen to the parts that just make sense to us. So we're picking and choosing in those things, and then it's just disregarded the rest.
I mean, to me, there are some that stand out clearer than others. Mm-hmm. I will say I'm not sure about this one.
Okay.
Because even she was like, yeah, I think some people said some stuff in there, but I'm going to have to re-listen when I get home.
Yeah.
As opposed to like actually hearing it in the moment, which a lot of times you can, at least I've noticed.
Yeah. And she didn't really have like a conversation with them. Right. She would ask a question. Some of them would get some kind of answer that didn't always fit 100, but it was close,
Right.
But then there was no like callback or response or anything like that because she didn't know.
Sure. And, the loud thuds, people, and she said this herself at the end of her video.
Yeah.
You are in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
You're not like out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely possible that it could be people outside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elsewhere. So I'm not saying that I totally disbelieve it, but it's not as much as maybe some other things.
All right.
So
I'm going to give it a 1 because I just really appreciated her video and everything like that. So I'm giving her a bonus point there. Then.
Okay. I'm going to give her 5.
5.
Again,
okay.
Good effort. There might have been something there. It was just not as solid as sometimes.
Okay.
All right. So now the next one, I should say, for room 8 is another, not a full apparition. Okay. But there is a blogger that claims that she woke up suddenly at midnight thinking she heard a man scream out her name. When she opened her eyes, she claimed to have seen a shadow on the wall by the door. She said she tried to kind of understand what could be making the shadow, but the way that it, where it was in the room, it didn't seem to make sense that there would be a shadow there.
Sure.
Since it was midnight too.
That would definitely be scary, I would say.
Yes.
But I think it's just the waking up in the middle of the night kind of thing. I think your mind plays tricks on you. And also, we all know that our eyes and our mind are positioned to capture shapes. And we will see shapes out of nothing at all. And I think that the waking up and that condition that we have, that we all do that, kind of goes together, and that's probably the reason why she saw the shadow person.
For me, I mean, this to me is representative of the other stories, that people tell.
Okay.
So hearing someone scream her name that woke her up, and maybe she didn't see the full apparition, but she saw something. So it's a little more believable for me.
I didn't know that there was a lot of stories of the shadow person in there.
Well, not shadow person, right?
Okay.
As I said, the common story is someone seeing a full apparition.
Gotcha.
And so she didn't see that, but she saw what she thought was like a shadow of something.
All right. So what is your rating?
So for me, the rating on this one is, I'm going to give it a 7.
I'm going to go 0. I think that pretty much explains it, just waking up. There's a lot of things that can happen when you're just waking up.
Okay. So one more.
Okay.
Again, we're building the evidence for this roommate.
All right.
Okay. So another investigator named Lucy went. Now, she's actually a journalist, and she calls herself a skeptic, but her paper or website was like, hey, can you go and stay there and see if you've experienced anything? So she says she didn't feel anything until she woke up at 4 a.m. with a heavy pressure on her chest. She did not see a ghost, however.
Okay. So we talked about this with the sleep paralysis episode, that this could actually be like an REM thing going on with your sleeping. It is something that happens to some individuals, more so women than men. But it is a scientific thing that they have found, and they've studied people that have had this actual thing happen to them, and they didn't see any ghost around them.
The only thing for me is that so she ends the article by saying that this actually made her a little bit more of a believer.
Good.
Which to me, though, she wasn't like, yeah, but I have that happen to me all the time when I sleep, is like I get that sleep paralysis or have that pressure. So it seems like it was something that was in that room. So
Well,
I don't know what's in that room. I don't know if it's a sailor, if it's something else, but
it could be a one-off based upon the conditions. Maybe it's colder than she usually sleeps. Maybe she slept in a position that she doesn't usually sleep in. You know, maybe I don't know, maybe she went to bed at an hour that she's not used to going to bed at or something. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe it's the waking up at 4 a.m., that did it. I don't know exactly what causes it. Scientists don't know, but they do know it's actually a thing.
Gotcha. So what would your rating be then?
This one I'm going to go 0 because, there is an actual condition where people do this.
All right, I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now let's get into some of the other hauntings.
All right.
All right. So here we go. So downstairs is supposed to be haunted. Many people claim to see the sight of a woman in white.
No.
Yes, of course. There's a
Rebecca,
woman
come
in
on.
white. Of course.
What are the
is.
chances of there being a woman in white here?
A lot. In a haunted hotel, a lot.
I thought since we were going to Australia, we would be done with all these things.
Maybe they were yellow there or
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
No. Pretty universal. So she does tend to wear white.
Mm-hmm.
And again, sometimes you hear the dining room. Sometimes you'll hear like the hallway. Like it's just kind of different areas downstairs, basically. So she'll, make her way through the kitchen, the bar, the dining area. And she is described as wearing period clothing that makes her appear either as a nurse or a maid. So I think some people say the nurse part because, again, it used to be a hospital, but that's not like no one knows for sure if that's what she is. They just, she's wearing white. She looks like she could potentially be a nurse.
Okay.
And again, I see it, there were a lot of reports of this one. Again, I think the most common is that idea that she's a nurse from the late 1700s when it was a hospital. So there you go. Woman in white walking around downstairs. Lots of sightings.
I mean, okay, so basically is that you're just telling me that people have seen her. Numerous people have seen her, but
yes.
I don't have enough details except for the period clothing to go off of. So I don't know what this is exactly. And I don't want to speculate. I'm just going to give it a 2.
Okay.
And I'm going to say I don't think it's anything because if it was, they would have some photographic or video evidence of it, or they would be able to say, hey, come in here at 3 a.m. It always happens at 3 a.m. or whatever time it happens. You know?
Sometimes they're like that. Sometimes they're not.
Well, but I mean,
yeah.
I have nothing to go on in this story, nothing that I could debate as far as this goes. Like, I'm just basically, can I say that these people are liars? No, I'm not going to say that all these people are liars. They felt whatever they felt, and I'm just going to
go with the 2.
Go with the 2.
All right.
That's pretty good, right?
Sure. For you, that's very good. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Okay.
It's a lot of people seeing the ghost. All right. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention some of the other kind of poltergeisty or ghosty activity that kind of from the story a little bit there.
Uh-huh.
But, we talked about the little boy saying, do it again.
Yeah.
So people will hear like voices. They'll hear the footsteps, right? Remember he heard footsteps in there. They'll feel cold spots.
Okay.
That one's a little harder for me, but anyways, they feel cold spots and electronics malfunctioning, which just going back to the video, she does talk about how her spirit box isn't working right. And that's only, I think there's actually 2 videos. So the other video had even less. But she talks about how that only ever happened at like one other location that she's been at. So her spirit box wasn't working. So I don't know if you want to lump them together or talk about some of those specifically. But
sure. Well, cold spots can be a lot of different factors that go into that. There could be poor ventilation. There can be different medical conditions can cause people to feel cold spots. I remember we were on a tour in Galena once, and the woman next to me said that she felt cold all of a sudden, and I was right next to her, and I was like, I don't.
Yeah, because there was
I
a
feel
ghost.
I feel hot.
Because there was a ghost.
Well, but she could have a medical condition that I don't have, or I could have a
Maybe.
medical condition that she doesn't have.
I
That would,
suppose.
so there's a lot of different things that can cause the cold spot. So I don't, that's just one of those kind of things is, that's interesting that there's a cold spot there. The disembodied footsteps, we are talking that this is in a hotel. It's
True.
it's not a huge hotel, but it is a hotel. And I think there is multiple floors too. So you could be hearing someone from below or someone from above as well. So those I don't give as much credit to. And the electronics malfunctioning, I would need to see the actual event in order to be able to debate that and be able to say, maybe they were by like a spot of a lot of electricity or something like that. There's a lot of different things that can cause this particular thing. So these all have logical explanations that can be taken. Now you're going to choose to take it as their ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to choose to say, no, it's probably some other scientific reason.
Okay.
So I'm going to go 1 on this one.
All right. I'm going to go 7.
Okay.
on all
I figured.
these things, yes.
So what would be your overall rating then, Rebecca?
So my overall rating is a 7.
Okay.
That's where I landed. I had a few lower. I had a couple higher, or at least one higher. But no, I think this place is pretty haunted.
Okay. It's pretty darn haunted. to you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go 1 on this because that averages out for me.
Yes, you did have a 2 in there, which
I had
is
a
like,
2,
what?
yeah. So that brings us to our closing arguments. This is our last chance to convince you to vote our way. We are each given 1 minute of uninterrupted time. We will time each other on our cell phones to keep each other honest because Rebecca likes to lie.
I don't.
Okay, Rebecca, are you ready?
I am ready.
And I have 1 minute on my clock, and it starts now.
All right. So I do think the Russell Hotel is haunted. Sometimes when you see these things, you get like a list of like the 10 most haunted hotels, but then when you actually look into it, it's like, oh, there's like one story and like there's no evidence. That is not the case here for me. There's a lot of reports, not only of the sailor in the room, but also of the woman downstairs, as well as just kind of some various spirits around, which to me, because it was a hospital during a very, I'm sure, chaotic time, and as well as just kind of being all these different, hotels and inns and, drinking spots and, just so much history there. It just doesn't surprise me that there'd be some lingering energy there. And again, I'm not sure, if it's a nurse, if it's a sailor, but I do think there's something there.
All right. And you had 4 seconds left,
I
Rebecca.
did.
Good job.
All right. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. And go.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I believe that all the evidence presented today was circumstantial evidence. I believe that if you are the kind of person that says, oh, there's cold spots, there's problems with electricity, that has to be a ghost, then nothing I'm going to say at this moment is going to convince you otherwise. But to those other people that are willing to dabble in the skeptical side, I would have you just look back at the evidence and say, is there anything concrete here where it says this cannot be explained in any scientific way, that it has to be a ghost, has to be paranormal? And I'm going to venture to say that you're going to come up with no, like me. So my answer is no, and yours should be too. All right. So I want to thank everyone so much for listening. Please share us with your friends and family, as word of mouth is our best advertisement. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet done so.
Yeah, please do.
And we have a lot of VIP patrons that we consider like our producers.
Absolutely.
And we'd like to give them a little shout out here.
Of course.
The first one is Emily,
Alicia,
Carrie,
Becky,
Kim,
Ta,
Ernie,
Marisol,
Shayla,
Cindy,
Kevin,
Nicole,
Darnay,
Jessica,
Sarah,
Linda,
Alice,
Austin,
Aaron,
Hope,
and Candy. And our next episode will finally be doing our Skeptics Day episode, which should have come out a few weeks ago. it's just been crazy this time. So
well, it's not just us, we have to schedule
Yeah.
with other people, and that just makes things more difficult. But I'm excited for this. I don't even know what's going to happen.
oh, I know. I mean, I know what it's going to be about. I don't know if you remember exactly what it's going to be about.
I have a vague memory. I have a
Yeah.
vague memory, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna have some of our favorite guests, and it's gonna be good.
Yeah, I'm going to tell them what it is. It's going to be a psychic reading off.
A psychic off.
Yeah, psychic off, where two people are going to go head to head in their predictions.
Ooh.
And you're going to get to decide who the winner was. That's all that's going to be said there.
All right. Yeah, and we're just hosts to this, man. They're the ones. I'm certainly going to help make some arguments, but it's going to be fun to hear what happens. I want to find my future.
We are going to be having one person that's never been on the show before. He is a psychic, and he's not at all Nick Mataragas.
No, that's true. That's true. I guess for some reason I thought he had been on, but I guess he hasn't. So
no, we're going to wish that he hadn't once he's been on. Let me just say.
I'm pretty sure we've been on other podcasts with him, but
I think he's labeled the very bad psychic. So anyways, until then, stay ghostly.
Bye.